everybody, my name is Victor and I teach English in Brazil. Today we are going to check how we can use prepositions, these small but super complex words that help build the relationship between different words or chunks within a sentence and also help to create the sentence structure we are going to use when we communicate. They can help communicate when or where an action is taking place, and we use lots of prepositions in lots of sentences. I'm pretty sure you have seen some of the prepositions I've been using in this beginning of the video, so let's check a little bit of them. And prepositions are tricky, especially for multilingual learners of English for many reasons. One of them is that we have lots of prepositions in English. We have more than 150 prepositions. And second, we never use prepositions in our mother tongues and in English in the same way. Additionally, the most common prepositions may have different functions within a sentence. So for instance, if you take the preposition by, you may have by being used as the agent of the action when you have something such as a book by Dickens. Or maybe by can be used as a means of transportation when you have I go to school by car, or even as a preposition of place when you say the book is by the table or maybe by the window. Because of these many challenges, in this video we'll be checking prepositions being used in two scenarios. The first one of them is prepositions of place, and the second one will be prepositions of time. And we'll be looking at the most used prepositions, high-frequency prepositions, and how to teach them in an easy way, which means teaching prepositions by using word chunks. When we think about prepositions of place, we have many words that can show where objects are. So for instance, we may have under, above, behind, beside, beneath. But there are three prepositions that are very famous, we use them a lot, and sometimes it's kind of hard to know which one we should be using. So we have on, in, and at. And an easy way to try to memorize or try to remember where to use or when to use each one of them is by thinking about these three words here: contact, inside, and location. Whenever you have something that is in contact with the surface, maybe you have a book on the table, a poster on the wall, or maybe you have something on your cell phone, on your TV, or on the screen, or on the tablet, you're gonna be using on, because that's showing contact with the surface. If you have something that is inside a bigger object or maybe inside a compartment, we're going to be using in. So you may have a book in your bag, a pencil in your pencil case, or maybe a coin in your pocket. Inside your pocket, in your pocket. And when we think about location, and this one is kind of tricky because we do have many exceptions to this rule, but sometimes it's interesting to think about locations by using the preposition at. So I work at school, or maybe I study at home. So at will be showing the location where you're doing these actions. And of course, to practice this with our students in the classroom, it's interesting to use pair work. So put your students in pairs and maybe ask them to take the objects they have close to them and place them around the room. They can place an eraser on the table, maybe they can place it under the table, or maybe they can put a bag inside their backpacks, and then the other student has to try to figure out where their objects are. When we think about prepositions of time, we can also think about math and numbers. I know, right? We teach English. Why am I talking about numbers and lines and timelines? But here's the thing, and it gets super interesting. Imagine a timeline, okay? If you have a timeline which divides the days of the week, whenever you're doing something on this timeline, you're going to be having a point that lies on a specific part of the line. Which means, if you take a timeline, picture this with me, of course, and I ask you, when do you study English? You can answer maybe, I study English on Monday, because that's where your point is lying on this line, on this timeline, on Monday. This even works for holidays, because for instance, I travel on Christmas. Christmas will be always the same part of this line, of this timeline. So whenever you have a specific day, you're going to be using on as a preposition. Pretty cool, huh? However, this changed a little bit if you're thinking about the months of the year. Because if you put the months of the year on a line, on a timeline, you won't be having a specific point lying on the line, but you're gonna have segments, parts of this line, right? So you can say, for instance, that you will travel in January, because I don't know which point is lying on this timeline here. So the only thing I know is that it's going to be in this segment, inside this part here of the timeline. So you can say something like, I work in March, I will travel in April, because you're showing the segment of the line when this thing is going to happen. And when you want to show the time something is going to happen, we're going to be using the preposition at. And of course, there is no timeline and no math here for this preposition. But one great activity students can do in the classroom is also in pairs. They can sit with each other and they can create schedules. And then they can ask questions about each other's schedule. So for instance, I have a schedule here with me. And this schedule can help students to practice two prepositions. So for instance, in this situation, you can say, I study English on Monday at 2 o'clock, because that's what's happening here on this part of the schedule. So students will be asking questions to each other based on their schedules, and they can also try to practice these two prepositions, on and at, based on the days of the week, a specific point lying on a timeline, and also at for a specific time when something is going to happen. And of course, these are only some examples and some activities students can use in the classroom to practice prepositions of place and time. The idea is for students to practice them so they can learn how to use them in chunks. So we're gonna have the chunk, for example, for prepositions of place. I work at the supermarket, not I work at supermarket. I study at school, not I study at the school. So the more students practice, the more they can get the hang of these chunks, you know, and also of other prepositions. We may have as other prepositions of time, for instance, before, after. Maybe we're gonna have some prepositions of movement, such as towards, backwards, forward. And these prepositions, they can only be practiced inside the classroom if students have a specific context, a specific purpose for them to practice them. To wrap up, understanding a prepositions idea makes it easier for students to know how to connect ideas related to places and ideas related to time. For more tips, make sure to check out the other videos on TESOL's How to Teach English series. Happy teaching!